Today we're going to be doing a USB-C mod install from scratch. So I basically just ordered the parts. In the past, I've just ordered the parts directly from Rorosaurus, who is the developer of the PCB. They've been out of stock in the United States for a hot minute, so at least on like Amazon. So I'm just making this little video. I'm doing this install for a customer, but I'm also making this video as a guide, so if someone else wants to give it a go, they can see what the process looks like, and I can provide a few other tips as well. So I'll have links to all of the parts and the original GitHub, so you could see the board. You could also download the Gerber file and order your own PCBs on something like OshPark or similar. So let's go over the components that I've got, and then we'll go over what it's going to look like to install. We're going to prep the board. We're going to put the USB-C port on. We're going to put the resistors on, and then we'll do the port swap. Okay, so here we've got the board. First thing we're probably going to want to do is just trim any extra little bits off that come from production. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Most of these won't matter, but let's just get them out of the way. And it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, a lot of this stuff you're not going to see. We'll just go with that. So I think what we're going to do first is we're going to focus on those resistors, because those will be more tricky. Let me show you how tiny these resistors are. For reference, this is a Game Boy Advance cartridge. It's really, really small. So let's do this first before I even pull out the resistors. Those are 5.1K, by the way. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. 5.1K kilo ohms. Yep. So what we're going to do, I think this will be the smartest way to do this. I'm going to tin 1/2. So I'm going to use a little bit of liquid flux on one side. Let me turn my iron on. And I can say that this install is pretty difficult, especially if you've never soldered before. I do offer this as a service, so I don't sell the parts, but if you do source the parts and you want to get this install done, contact information will be in the description. So I'm just going to come in and touch this pad. Oops, it's okay. I'll do the other side. I guess I'm doing all four. My iron just wants to stick it to all. That's okay. So we'll go with that. I am going to use hot air to put it down in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel this back and pull out one of these resistors. This is really small. If I'm not super careful, these will just go flying. Let me get a little bit of flux. And this might seem a little weird, but I'm just going to put it on the silicone mat. And then what I can do is I can touch my tweezers to that. Then I'll have a little bit of adhesion. There we go. So I'll just do one at a time. Let's see how this fits on here. Okay. And I kind of just want to hold this in place. These are really small. There we go. I've got a good grip. I'm going to press down on this spot, not too hard. I'm going to come in. I'm at 330 degrees Celsius with like 90% airflow. Let's see if we can get a connection here. I'm going to release. Then I'm going to just going to hold this down, and let's reflow that. Not super happy with how that looks. Add some more flux. And I'm gonna press down. Release. Wait for it. Good. Let's go ahead and do that other one. And I recommend ordering extra if you do get these, because you never know. You might toss one, and they're so cheap. Just get some extras. Just get some. I hope you can just see how small they are. I just need to get it off first. There we go. This one's giving me a little more difficulty, huh? Let me try again with the component on the mat, and then I'll come in and I'll pick it up. Let's focus. I'm going to press gently. Not using any board holders or anything. Okay, let go. I saw that the solder touched the leg. Wasn't enough. Let me put the component back on the mat. I'm going to pick it up. I just want to make sure that my tweezers aren't holding it off of the pad. I want to be pressing it up against, bring in the hot air again. Okay, I'll let go. Wait for it to cool. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's just add some more flux. Whoops. There goes the whole board. Here we go. Just gonna hold this board down and come in with the hot air one more time. Let's try pressing them both down. Just want them super solid. Looks good. Now at this point you may want to use your multimeter just to verify the resistance of those components. I'm going to do that because they're almost impossible to measure unless they're soldered down. And you want to get ones that have a good tolerance. That's 5.1K. And 5.1K. Very good. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put that USB-C port in place. And it just has 4 legs and it just sits on top. Now this part shouldn't be too difficult. All the legs should just line right up. Unfortunately, it's just a little 6-pin situation. Nothing too crazy. Let's add some flux. And we're just going to start with 1 pin in the corner. We want to make sure this is straight. Let's see, we just want it. I might even just come in with my hands. Press it down. I just want to touch one of these little feet. Let's go ahead and do another one. Okay. And now we can do the other feet. Now I've got 2 hands on my iron. And I'm touching the pin and the pad at the same time to get heat on both. And the solder will go where the heat goes. So that's why you need both hot. Okay, and once that's to your liking, you can flip it over. You can see it's pretty good. We're going to go in and flow these feet. I'm actually going to put a blob of solder on my iron. And I'm going to hold this down. Let me go ahead and add some flux here. This will help things flow into place. And if you can, you want to avoid putting stuff on that big leg like I just did. Sometimes it can't be helped. They're so close to each other, but that's okay. That looks good. If you want, you could flip it over and you could even secure it from the top here. It looks like there's plenty of solder. I'll just go ahead and add some extra just because it's going to be kind of anchoring that USB-C connector in place, and we don't want it ever to come loose. Looks good. At this point, you may want to just plug this in and make sure you got 5 volts coming into the input. This will go on the communication line and it'll tell whatever device that it's supplying the power to only provide 5 volts. Now after you've got everything cleaned up and you want to brush off any flux, one thing you might consider is sanding the bottom so that it's super flat, because once you solder those legs in, you might get a little bubble of solder. You want this to sit as flush as possible against the Game Boy Advance SP board. I've just got a little metal file, so I'm just basically going to set this down on top and move it back and forth to flatten it out. And it doesn't need to be a lot, just a little bit. You can use sandpaper if you want. Just be cautious of this backside. I think that'll be perfectly fine. So let's move on to the Game Boy Advance SP board and how we're going to get that old charging port off. It should just come right off. But let's take a look. So we got the underside. I think what I'll do is I'll use some low melt solder. It's always handy in times like this. Let's apply some generous flux to these big legs. And we're just going to come in and heat it and introduce some low melt. Just do it for a few seconds. My iron is at 385. I really just want to be touch and go. Introduce some. And I'll let go. Now let's flip it over. And we just got these rear pins. Let's introduce some more flux. And we're going to do the same thing. It's okay if these pins bridge. We just want to avoid touching these other components. And this will really help prevent ripping any pads. We might even be able to just get this off with the iron with this low melt. So I'm going to see if I can show you what I'm doing. I'm just going to hold this by the connector and I'm going to go over these pins. Let me see if I could heat up this connector. I might just use this hot air. I'm going to go over this leg, and then I'm going to go over the other leg, and now I'm going to go over these pins. Go over this leg again. Go over the other leg again. Whoops. Go over the other leg again. Go over the pins. Just going to repeat that cycle. This connector should come right off. Okay, connector's off. Let's clean that up with some solder braid, if I can find mine. Ah, here we go. And I'm not pressing down super hard, I'm just letting it glide across. Don't need a lot of pressure. Actually, you shouldn't really be using any pressure, just let the wick absorb and do its job. Come over to this one. You'll want to try to get this as flat as possible too. Cool, that looks great. We're going to clean it. I have a Q-tip and some alcohol. I'm just going to come in and scrub it on top. It should be nice and clean when we're all done. So one thing that I found useful when installing this kit, sometimes it can help to have some wire. Let me show you what I mean. Because when you put this USB-C port over, there's no legs holding it down in place, and it can be kind of difficult to get the solder to flow. So let me show you what I do. I get a few strands of wire, and I'm going to strip it. So you have a bunch of this stripped wire. Let me get a few of those strands. And we're just going to twist those strands together. I'll do 3 strands. So you'll see I got the 3 strands of wire. I'm just going to twist them together so I make kind of one thicker wire. And I'm going to use this I'm going to kind of stick it in the legs. And the reason for that is it'll help the solder flow between the 2 points and create a much more sturdy joint. So you can see I got a little twisted like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this through one of the legs. We're going to want all 3 of those threaded through. You can think about this kind of like rebar in a concrete structure, where the rebar isn't the entire support, but it's an additional thing. So I'm going to hold this in place. I'm going to make sure everything's lined up as best as I can. This can be a little tricky. Let's add some flux. Let's see, I forgot to get my solder. I kind of have my solder sticking out so I can grab some with my iron without having to hold it. And then let's just touch it with some solder on it. It's not flowing at all. Let's try this. There we go. The wire kind of helps it flow down. So with that, let me trim some of this wire, and then I'll bring it to the other side. And it looks like I want it aligned a little better, but that's okay. We only have one side soldered down. Heat it up. We could just get this perfectly aligned how we want it. Okay. Let's flip this around. I'm going to move it over just a little bit more, because once the other leg gets soldered down, it's a lot harder to move it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it because it's good enough. So let's do the same thing we did on the other side. We've got the wire running through. Going to add a bunch of flux. This time I can use both hands. I'm going to heat the area, introduce the solder. And let's just go ahead and add some more. I can press down while I'm doing this. Now let me press down on the connector from the top. Press and hold. And now let's go ahead and we'll flow the other side too. And now let me show you what's amazing about this. Let's flip it over. I've already got solder through to the bottom. That wire just, it creates a little heat bridge. Now I'll just come in with my flush cutters, trim that wire. Come in with my flush cutters, I'll trim this wire. Flip it over. Trim that wire. Trim that wire. Then all we have left is just that that one joint. Add some flux. And that's all there is to it, really. I'll add some more here. Just kind of let that flow. There we go. Okay, time to clean up and test. Okay, so I've got a Nintendo Switch charger. Let's plug it in. And it should blink orange and then turn right off if everything's working as expected. There we go. Yeah, it's working. I'll try both sides. Blinks on, blinks off. Blinks on, blinks off. Let's now put the battery in. We'll make sure that's charging. I don't have the 3D printed filler piece right now, but I will. And that'll just sit right in there, make it nice and flush. Let's go ahead and put the battery in. If I can find it on my mess of a desk. There we go. It's buried under. Ay. And the light should come on and stay on. There we go. We got USB-C charging. Rorosaurus just really made a great board design, I think, there. So, and again, all those links will be in the description. Let's go ahead and fully reassemble. I'm also going to solder the wire for the IPS for the brightness control, but besides that, it's all typical. But I just kind of want to show what I do for the USB-C install process. Okay, so wire is installed and everything's working. Got the IPS working, brightness controls working. And of course charging is working with the USB-C. This is the Nintendo Switch charger. And that works both ways. Let me flip it. Awesome. So that's going to wrap up this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the in the comments, or you can contact me at the information in the description. If you want an install done of this mod, just feel free to reach out and we'll work something out. I hope that you found this video useful and that you learned something, and that many more USB-C mods will be in your future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.